For 20 years, Daniel Harper never missed a single anniversary. Every May 14th, no matter how busy life became, he drove to the small cemetery on the edge of town, carrying a bouquet of fresh white lilies. They had been Emily's favorite flowers. He would kneel beside her headstone, brush away fallen leaves, and quietly tell her everything she had missed. How their son had learned to ride a bicycle. How Liam had broken his arm climbing a tree. How he had graduated from middle school with honors. How he still talked in his sleep sometimes, just like his mother used to. Daniel knew Emily couldn't answer, but speaking to her made him feel a little less alone. My name is Daniel Harper. I was 48 years old. A single father, a high school history teacher, and for 20 years, I believed I had buried the love of my life. Emily disappeared during a ferry accident when Liam was only 6 months old. The rescue teams searched for days. Several passengers were never found. Among them was my wife. Without a body, there was no funeral, only a memorial service, a headstone, and an empty coffin placed beneath the ground so family members would have somewhere to grieve. I accepted it because everyone told me I had to. Life moved forward, or at least it pretended to. Raising Liam became my purpose. He inherited Emily's laugh, her kindness, even the little wrinkle beside his left eye whenever he smiled. Sometimes looking at him hurt, because he reminded me of everything I'd lost. One Saturday afternoon, just after Liam finished his final college entrance exam, we stopped at a neighborhood grocery store. He insisted on pushing the shopping cart. You always buy the boring cereal. It's healthy. It tastes like cardboard. It keeps you alive. He laughed. You sound old. I am old. You're 48. Exactly. Ancient. We joked the entire time. Moments like that reminded me why I had never given up. When we finished shopping, Liam carried several grocery bags toward our pickup truck while I returned the cart. That's when I heard it. A laugh. Soft. Bright. Completely familiar. Every muscle in my body froze. Some sounds never leave your memory. I slowly turned toward the cafe across the parking lot. A woman stood outside talking to another customer. She wore a light blue sweater. Her dark hair rested on her shoulders. Even from a distance, I recognized the way she tilted her head while laughing. Exactly the way Emily always had. No, I whispered. It can't be. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might collapse. The woman turned. Our eyes met. Time stopped. The grocery cart slipped from my hands. It rolled into a parked car with a loud metallic bang. She stared at me. The smile disappeared from her face. Her breathing became uneven. Then tears filled her eyes. I took one uncertain step forward. Emily. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Standing beside her was a young woman around 21 years old. She looked at me curiously, then at Emily. Mom. The young woman had Emily's smile, but something else caught my attention. Her eyes. Blue-gray. Exactly like mine. My knees nearly gave out. Liam hurried over. Dad, what's wrong? He looked where I was staring, then back at me. Dad. I couldn't answer. Emily finally spoke. Her voice trembled. Daniel. It was the first time I'd heard my name spoken by her in 20 years. I felt every memory rush back at once. Our first date. Our wedding. The day Liam was born. The night she disappeared. I crossed the distance between us slowly, afraid she might disappear if I moved too quickly. When I stood only a few feet away, I reached out with trembling fingers. I'm dreaming. Emily gently touched my hand. Her fingers were warm. Real. I'm not. Tears streamed down both our faces. Liam looked completely confused. Dad, who is this? I swallowed hard. This is your mother. The words barely left my mouth before Liam stepped backward in disbelief. My mother died. Emily covered her mouth. No, she whispered. They told me. They told me both of you died. Silence. Complete silence. Even the traffic seemed distant. The young woman beside Emily looked terrified. What are you talking about? Emily slowly turned toward her. Sophie, this is Daniel. The young woman smiled nervously. I know. He's your old friend. Emily shook her head. No. She looked back at me. He's my husband. Sophie's eyes widened. What? And? Emily glanced toward Liam. That's your brother. The world seemed to tilt beneath our feet. Liam stared at Sophie. Sophie stared back. Neither of them knew what to say. Neither did I. Finally, I asked the only question that mattered. What happened? Emily closed her eyes. I don't know everything. I only know what I was told. She explained that after the ferry accident, She had been rescued unconscious by a private fishing vessel. She suffered a serious head injury and temporary memory loss. When she finally regained enough awareness to ask about her family, two familiar faces appeared at the hospital. My older brother, Michael, and Emily's older sister, Karen. According to them, I had died in the accident. So had baby Liam. Emily broke down crying as she remembered those days. I wanted to see you. They told me there was nothing left. I believed them. I felt physically sick. My own brother? Her own sister? Why? Before Emily could answer, a black SUV pulled into the cafe parking lot. The moment she saw it, fear flashed across her face. Oh no. What is it? She looked directly into my eyes. They found me. I had no idea that the people who had stolen 20 years of our lives were about to step out of that vehicle, and that the truth behind their betrayal was far darker than either of us could have imagined. The black SUV came to a slow stop only a few yards away. Emily's face turned pale. She instinctively stepped in front of Sophie, as though trying to protect her. Daniel immediately noticed. Emily, who's in that vehicle? She swallowed hard. My sister. And your brother. The driver's door opened. A middle-aged man stepped out first. Daniel recognized him instantly. Michael, his older brother. A woman climbed out from the passenger side. Karen, Emily's older sister. For 20 years, Daniel had trusted them both. Now they stood in front of him looking as though they had seen a ghost. Michael spoke first. This isn't how we wanted this to happen. Daniel laughed bitterly. You mean after 20 years? Karen looked at Emily. We can explain. Emily shook her head. No. You lied. You told me Daniel and Liam were dead. Karen wiped tears from her face. You had severe memory loss. The doctors weren't sure you'd recover. We thought. You thought what? Emily interrupted. That you could decide my life for me? Daniel stepped closer. You attended my wife's memorial service. You watched me bury an empty coffin. You stood beside me while I cried. Michael lowered his head. I know. You knew she was alive. Another long silence followed. Finally, Michael spoke the truth. The ferry accident wasn't the reason. Daniel frowned. What are you talking about? Michael looked directly at him. After Emily was rescued, she couldn't remember anything. The doctors said familiar surroundings might help. But Karen, he glanced toward Emily's sister, had already filed temporary guardianship paperwork. Emily stared at her sister. You what? Karen began crying. I thought I was protecting you. You were terrified. You didn't recognize anyone. The doctors said recovery could take months. Daniel's voice hardened. That doesn't explain why you told me she was dead. Michael answered instead. Because I made the worst decision of my life. He admitted that after the accident, doctors mistakenly listed several unidentified victims as presumed dead until identification could be completed. Emily's records became mixed with another passenger's. When Karen discovered the error, she panicked. She feared Emily would relive the trauma if forced back into her previous life before recovering. Michael agreed. Instead of correcting the mistake immediately, they waited. Weeks became months. Months became years. Every year it became harder to admit the truth. Eventually, the lie became impossible to escape. Daniel couldn't believe what he was hearing. You stole 20 years. Michael nodded. I know. You stole Liam's mother. I know. You stole my wife. I know. And you let me grieve every single day. Michael's shoulders shook. There isn't a punishment harsh enough. Emily looked toward Karen. What about Sophie? Karen quietly explained that during Emily's long rehabilitation, she met a widowed doctor named Robert Hayes. Believing Daniel was dead, Emily eventually married him. Several years later, Sophie was born. Robert himself had never known the truth. He genuinely believed Emily had lost her husband in the ferry accident. 3 years earlier, Robert passed away after a heart attack. Only then did Karen's guilt become unbearable. She finally confessed everything to Emily. Emily immediately demanded proof. When she saw old newspaper articles, hospital records, and Daniel's name still appearing online as a history teacher, her entire world collapsed. For months, she searched for him, until fate brought them together in a grocery store parking lot. Sophie quietly looked at Liam. So, you're really my brother? Liam nodded slowly. I guess I am. Neither knew how to process 20 years of lost family. The following weeks were filled with lawyers, investigators, and countless conversations. Although no crime could fully restore what had been lost, both Michael and Karen publicly admitted their deception. Their reputations never recovered, but neither tried to defend themselves. Instead, they accepted responsibility. Healing proved much harder. Daniel and Emily didn't pretend the missing years could simply disappear. Too much had happened. Too many birthdays had passed. Too many memories had been missed. Instead, they chose something different. A new beginning, not by replacing the past, but by honoring what remained. Daniel and Emily slowly rebuilt their friendship. Then trust. Months later, they attended Liam's college graduation together. For the first time in his life, Liam saw both of his parents sitting beside one another. He smiled through tears before walking across the stage. Sophie became a regular visitor. She and Liam discovered they shared the same love of photography, hiking, and terrible jokes. The resemblance everyone noticed first turned out to be the least important thing they shared. They shared kindness, curiosity, and the quiet determination to make up for lost time. One evening, Daniel returned to the cemetery carrying white lilies. Emily walked beside him. Together they stood before the headstone that had marked an empty grave for 2 decades. Emily gently touched the engraved name. "I spent 20 years believing you were buried somewhere." Daniel looked at the stone. "I spent 20 years talking to an empty grave." She slipped her hand into his. "I'm sorry." He squeezed it gently. "You didn't leave. You were taken." They asked the cemetery to remove the memorial stone. In its place, they installed a simple memorial bench overlooking the lake. The plaque carried only one sentence: "Never let fear or lies steal the time love deserves." Families who visited the cemetery often rested there without knowing its story. But Daniel, Emily, Liam, and Sophie knew. Every anniversary, they met on that bench with white lilies and a picnic basket, not to mourn the years they had lost, but to celebrate the years they had been given back. Because while 20 years can never be returned, love has an extraordinary way of surviving even the deepest betrayal. And sometimes, after unimaginable heartbreak, the greatest miracle isn't finding what you lost. It's discovering that hope waited patiently for you all along.